Is sports media in a bad place right now? This is a big topic that I really want to get into. Brian Windhorst of ESPN recently had a conversation about that. And I think it's time to do a bit of a deep dive into what's really going on in the sports media world and the way we consume sports. I'm Trevor Lane. This is the Basketball Bulletin. Make sure you do subscribe right here to the channel. Joined by Donnie Freeman. Donnie, this is something I've been wanting to talk about for a while. Before this Brian Windhorst clip started going around, I had already planned on discussing this. So I'm really glad that we get a chance to talk about this. And I was thinking about it. I think you are perhaps the perfect person to have this conversation with, because while you are relatively new getting into the sports media world, you have been a sports media consumer for a long, long time, and you're very well aware of the rigors of content production from your video game channel that you've got. So I think you're going to offer some really good perspective into this.
Yeah, definitely. Happy to be here and talk about this, and we'll see where this takes us.
All right, so here it is. Brian Windhorst is on Thanasis Antetokounmpo's podcast, and this is what he had to say about the current state of sports media. Before we get into it, throughout the conversation here, at any point, if you guys have thoughts, put them down in the comment section. Let us know what you think about the current state of sports media. Here we go.
But I would say that we're not in a great place with media right now. We're not in a great place because I think we're devaluing things. I'm sound like an old man here. I think we're devaluing things that help build the league up. Like one of the things that storytelling. Yes. Everything's too short right now. People are too focused on tweets, too focused on guys getting crossed over, too focused on guys getting dunked on.
Lowlights.
People getting embarrassed,
Yes.
Social media posts, not as much on storytelling.
Okay, he's going to get more into storytelling, but Donnie, and we're going to get more into the rest of what he's saying here, but I thought that was just a really interesting initial point, that we are too focused on guys getting embarrassed, guys getting dunked on, guys getting crossed over. And I think this is 100% true. And we're seeing culturally a shift in the way that we consume media, where now we're seeing essentially a Schadenfreude. It's where people are taking joy out of the suffering of others. After seeing others get humiliated, seeing others have embarrassing things happen, we're seeking out those kind of moments. When we see Ja Morant crosses somebody over, I don't know, whoever it is, picks a random player, Ja Morant crosses somebody over, it's not, oh my God, Ja is so good. The commentary is often, LMAO, look at what happened to this guy. He really did him like that. Or, that's the commentary. Cooked. Yeah, exactly. He got cooked. Have you noticed that shift as well, to where we're more and more focused on trying to find somebody getting embarrassed?
Yeah, I mean, I think that some of that also is because of the ease of these clips just circulating on the internet, whether it's Twitter or otherwise. They go viral whenever that stuff happens. And so I think that is something that's exciting for people to see. And I think it's always been that way, but we're able to access it more readily. So I think that media in general has leaned into it as a result of that stuff being what tends to be pretty popular online.
Well, do you see a difference between that stuff and, like, blooper reels have been a thing forever, right? Do you see a difference in how we're viewing those sorts of, this guy got crossed over and what's happening now, or and what used to happen anyway with blooper reels?
I mean, I guess on the surface, it's the same concept, right? Like you're taking a moment and you're just putting it out there like that. I think it's the same concept. So I don't know if it's a huge shift, but I do think that, like I said, with the way that this stuff kind of circulates now, it definitely puts an emphasis on it. And these people, they can see from the back end, all the analytics, all the metrics, whenever they put up regular content, like that's not like this, like somebody got cooked or crossed over, dunked on, whatever. They can see what's popular and what people are more likely to view and share. And so that's why they've also leaned into it too. So, but on the surface, like I said, I think it's the same idea. It's just packaged a little bit differently.
Yeah, and it's celebrating some of I think the negative side of things rather than the positive. And it's not necessarily that it's all bad, that it's all a bad thing, or that we shouldn't be doing that ever. Look, there's funny moments that happen that just, the ball slips out of a player's hands and it sails into the 10th row or something. Like, there's funny things that happen on a basketball court. And I think it's fine to highlight those things. But I think we're also seeing it, and Windhorst is going to talk about this in a minute, it's bleeding into the way we talk about sports, and particularly the way we debate about sports as well. So here, let's continue on. Here's what else Windhorst has to say here about the topic.
Like learning about players and learning their backgrounds and what I call chronicling the season.
Yeah.
Like talking about what's going on in the season, like nuance and stuff like that. When you're really into your team and you know about all the players and there's special features done on them. Like just the other day, Inside Stuff. You remember that show at all?
Mm-hmm.
It was a show that was on every Saturday, and they just got inducted into the Hall of Fame. The show itself, whatever, got inducted to the Hall of Fame. And they used to like tell I was on every Saturday when I was a kid, Ahmad Rashad and Will Obey. And they would tell stories of players, and yeah, there's a lot of different avenues of that right now. Like players have their own media and like for example.
Okay. So he's talking about like stories of players aren't being told the way it used to be, and saying that we are focusing on these clips, these moments in time, rather than telling the big story. Part of that has to be the way we're consuming media right now, right? You look at reels, you look at shorts, you look at all of that sort of stuff. Much shorter form content, much more difficult to tell a story in a minute or less than it is in a longer form piece. Is this, Donnie, do you think storytelling is being lost in all of this?
Yeah, but that's just, again, a conversation to be had on a bigger scale, because this new generation, last couple of generations that have really grown up with this stuff, we have kind of just moved away from having the attention span of being able to sit through a lot of this stuff.
True.
Long story short, people only want to watch a couple of minutes of something and then they'll kind of move on, or they want that quick hit 30-second clip that's going to make them laugh or feel some sort of emotion. And when you're talking about sports, that's why I said that, they know what they're doing, because these quick hitter, crossover highlight clip, or a 2-minute highlight for a player from a game, things like that. That's the type of stuff people are typically going to want to watch and sit around for. And that's also why these shows, let's just take First Take as an example, go out of their way to make sure that they're saying things on these shows that they may or may not believe, but those statements can be clipped and shared around, and that's just going to grow the notoriety for the show and all that stuff. And so it's a very deliberate approach, but I do think, to answer your question, we've moved away from that as a whole. But I think that's because people, simply put, don't care as much for that. Like if they want that, they'll seek out that in the form of like a documentary, or like he was going to mention, players having their own ways of like kind of talking about that type of stuff. But they don't really want that from entertainment shows anymore, which is what most of the sports content is nowadays.
Well, I guess there's two things that I want to talk about there. And that's, number one, it is just the level of access that you have to have in order to create the kind of content that Windhorst is talking about. So we need to talk about that, because I think a lot of fans don't understand and don't know what's happened in NBA media in the last few years since COVID. So I need to talk about that. And then it also speaks to hot takes and the debate shows and the way all of that works. So let's start though with the way the NBA is covered. So what a lot of people don't know, and if you're not in NBA media or sports media in general, you probably don't know this either. The NBA has changed the kind of access that reporters have to players now, and they did it in COVID. And I remember very vividly telling, it is now essentially a segregated system. The way NBA media works. Now there are different tiers of reporters, and depending on what tier you're in, that determines how much access you get and where you're allowed to go. Are you allowed to go into press rooms? Are you allowed to go into locker rooms? Are you allowed to go onto the court? Depends on what tier you're in, right? All these things now matter. This happened during COVID. The NBA used the excuse of, we're doing this to try to make sure our players don't have too many people around them and they don't wind up getting sick, right? That's the excuse. That's what they said, which look, you can argue whether or not that's a reasonable stance to take, but I remember very vividly at the time telling my colleagues, that's it. They are never going back. They will never give back that power. Right now, they've got the reason to take away access. It will never come back. They're never going to give that back. And to this point, they have not. They still have not. We still have that system. So that means that there's only the amount of reporters that actually have that kind of informal access to a player, which you get. And I did a video the other day about how I don't think media needs to be in locker rooms at this point, specifically a locker room setting for various reasons, because frankly, it's uncomfortable. But having access to players in a more informal setting where you can find out more about them personally instead of they're behind a podium and it's more just about the game. And then you're able to, if you can find out more about them personally, you're able to tell those stories. That access has been much restricted in the last few years. So when Brian Windhorst is talking about, well, storytelling has gone away, I think part of it is, yes, part of it is the way we're consuming media, and that's probably the biggest part of it. But access is something that has been restricted since 2020, and I think that's also limited the ability for some reporters to tell those kinds of stories. So I think that's something, Donnie, that gets missed in all of that and gets missed in what Brian, because of course Brian Windhorst can get access wherever he wants, but that's not true of all media. And I think a lot of fans don't know that there is this tiered system.
Yeah, that's the first time I'm hearing of it, to be honest. That definitely makes a lot of sense. And that would be a good reason as to why some of these stories aren't coming out on these players, because they simply don't have access to that information. So that's definitely pretty interesting. Like I said, first time I'm hearing that.
Well, but then there's the whole hot take thing. And you mentioned it already. And personally, what I don't like, and you guys know I don't tend to get into hot takes too much, but what I don't like is I don't know if the person is being genuine or not with hot takes, right? Because the whole goal, and there's actual training, like media training to do this so that people get used to it. There's an art to it in 60 seconds or less. So it's very clippable. You need to say something. You need that something to generate a reaction, right? Strongly in favor or strongly against. What you don't want is anyone to be right in the middle. You want to push people to either side and make them have a very strong reaction to it. So you say something that most people would not think, right? You say, I think Anthony Davis is top 5 all time because this, and this, and it is unquestionable. And anybody who doesn't think that is an idiot and all that, right? And then you're going to get a bunch of people that would say, what are you talking about? He's not top 5 all time. It's these 5 guys are top 5 all time. You're stupid. All this stuff, right? Or you're going to have people come in and they're going to agree with you. And then they're going to argue back and forth with those people, and it creates engagement. But again, I don't know if I'm getting a genuine opinion there, Donnie, from that person, or if they're just saying that to sort of light the fuse and then walk away and benefit from that. And I think some of the real analysis in sports media gets lost because we do currently have a system that is very rewarding to that type of content.
Yeah, that's been the case for the last number of years, and it's really started to take off here within basically since a similar timeline of the last like 4 or 5 years. It's really started to take off where your whole goal is to just say something provocative and get it clipped and then shared around, and like I said, grow the name for the show or the channel, whatever it is that stuff is coming from. And it's really unfortunate because, like you said, you don't know if it's genuine. It probably isn't most of the time, and it's unfortunate because that's the type of media that people prefer to consume now. So it means that the actual good pieces out there, they have no room for growth. People aren't really looking or not getting that unless they're explicitly searching for that type of content from specific people. And so I think that's a huge reason why, like you were talking about with the access and stuff, but I think this is a really big reason why overall it's just changed in the way that it's covered. And you can kind of see it with, and this is not to knock anyone in particular, but you can kind of see it with like ESPN and the way that they have handled retaining certain guys.
Sure.
I was going to say players, but retaining certain guys, letting go of other guys. Maybe it's contractual, but they're clearly going a certain direction with what they want their message to be, their coverage to be. And people like Zach Lowe that could put out good content kind of are left by the wayside. And so I think that's a large part of it.
Yeah, I think that is as well. All right, let's get into a little bit more of what Wendy has to say here. We've got a few more points, of course, that we need to touch upon here.
Example, ESPN responds to what the audience says it wants because we can analyze the data so much better now. And so if the audience says it wants debate about who the Lakers should be running their offense through, or the LeBron should play back-to-backs or whatever, all the stuff is like a debate. LeBron should be playing back-to-backs. No, LeBron should be sitting out. They should be running through Anthony Davis. No, they should be running through Austin Reeves. Like, that is what it becomes.
LeBron should not be playing back-to-backs, by the way, but that's just me, though.
Okay.
That's just me.
I would agree with you, but he doesn't agree with you because he's like, I know my body. I quit.
He wants to play?
I did, like, LeBron gave me a lecture like 8 years ago about don't count my minutes.
Okay, I think it's Donnie. I just got to pause for a second there. I think it's funny that Windhorst is like lamenting that this is the way that, and he used as an example, LeBron shouldn't play back-to-backs. And Thanasis immediately goes into, oh, he shouldn't be playing back, right? Because that's the whole point of topics like that. It's to push people to one side or the other. And so the example that Wendy uses immediately gets that reaction out of Thanasis while he's lamenting the fact that that's the type of stuff that does get a reaction.
Yeah, see, that's why it works, because they know what they're doing, man. So it's funny because also, like, people that I don't think even want to be doing that, like Windhorst, he's just like sometimes on the segments on ESPN and he's just like arguing, and I'm like, I know he doesn't want to be arguing about this, so it's just kind of funny.
All right, here we go.
Basically, he's like, don't count my minutes, and I had a few moments where I've
try not to
count his minutes, but generally I don't count his minutes, but. Like where and there's room for that. There's room for, like, let's have a debate about the Lakers. Can the Lakers make the playoffs? Should the Lakers trade for somebody? Like, there's room for that, but like there isn't a story where they tell a story about Dalton Connect or, you know, Jared Vanderbilt. They don't tell that story, and because the data says the clicks go on two people debating about whether the Lakers should trade Anthony Davis or something.
This is
like
what
that.
I was telling Tony.
My bosses would say, well, that's all well and good and that sounds nice, but if you want the ratings, you better talk about the Lakers or the Warriors.
True.
So, like, I mean, I would say, well, let's lead storytelling instead of following. Instead of following the crowd, let's lead and try to get the crowd. But
I got you.
Yeah, because
all right.
I really liked his point there where he was like, you know, my bosses are like, yeah, but if you want the ratings, you better talk about the Lakers or Warriors. That was another thing I was going to mention, is that part of coverage too has been so isolated to specific markets, specific players, specific teams, because they are the ones that are going to generate the most clicks, the most engagement, all that stuff, most viewership. And that's why they don't cover, you know, some random team like Detroit very often or something like that, unless it's in relation to, like, say, for example, the Lakers who played them recently, unless it's in relation to them. That's the only time some of these teams are going to get any national screen time in that regard, right? Not just talking about them literally playing on a national stage, but like these other shows, they don't talk about these teams. There are some teams that don't get talked about enough that are actually having good seasons or having good players, or have had good players. They don't talk about them enough. So that's another thing too.
Yeah, absolutely. OKC. Look, I mean, they've been great.
Absolutely.
And they don't get talked about enough. So here's the, and I guess there's a couple things there. Like, this is why the NBA put Lakers Wolves on opening night, because they want that Lakers spotlight to shine on Anthony Edwards for a little bit, and then maybe some of that spotlight to stay there, to stay on Anthony Edwards, and to have another guy that now everybody's going to want to talk about. So it's about building up, right, the next stars and everything right now. But I think when we're looking at the markets and the focus and everything, and why the focus gets put where it does, it's because of the views. And look, the whole ecosystem is set up around this, right? I mean, Donnie, even on this channel with what we're doing, right? We try to cover lots of different teams, but there's like, I don't know if you do the same thing as I do, but like, if I see, like, YouTube specifically, they give you these little fireworks when you get a video that was the top one out of your last 10 videos, when it's done better. It's such a great feeling when you see those little fireworks, right? And it's stupid, right? It's just little fireworks on the screen, but you're like, yes,
We live
all
for the
right, this people are enjoying this one. And if you get like it says this one ranks 9 out of the last 10, this one is 10 out of the last 10, you feel terrible, right? You're like, oh, I get people aren't watching this as much. It must not have been any good. Your chance of seeing those little fireworks go way up if it's something that's on the Lakers, it's something on the Warriors, it's something on the Knicks, it's something on the Bulls, it's something on the Heat, right? That's the way it is. And so there's a reward system beyond just monetary, but also there's a reward system in terms of seeing the viewership behind focusing on specific markets. And so we are incentivized to do that. Whereas if we do something tomorrow on the Memphis Grizzlies, or more of a small market team, that's probably not going to do nearly as well, unless it's something sensational, like, I don't know, Ja Morant does a 360 dunk and jumps over Victor Wembanyama in the process or something like that. Then okay, maybe that blows up. But if I did something on, hey, Jake LaRavia playing well on the wing for Memphis, 10 out of 10, I'm de-incentivized to do that.
Yeah, that is a little bit of a look behind the curtain
Sure.
for our channel, but for just in general, every channel that tries to do something, or just any like sports channel that tries to just cover all that stuff, you're presented with that dilemma of, okay, well, I want to cover all this stuff, but these aren't going to get, they're not going to get viewership. And, obviously that's not the only thing that matters, right?
No.
You want to do other things. Viewership's not the only thing that matters, but it is an incentive, right? And you work for the ones that are going to be more successful overall. And so that's why national media, they don't talk about, the other teams as much, unless it's in relation to one of their big ticket teams. That's why they talk about the Lakers and LeBron and all that stuff every freaking day. Even they got really bad with that, like ESPN and Fox with Skip. They got so bad at that where like they were talking about LeBron and the Lakers every day, and they weren't even playing games anymore. They were out of the playoffs or whatever, and they're still talking about them every single day, talking about tweets LeBron will put out and stuff like that. That's the type of stuff that like people say they don't want, but apparently all the numbers that these guys are seeing tells them that they do want it. So.
And that's why I even brought up the YouTube thing, was because it's not just in this ecosystem that exists, that incentivized approach to sports media. It also exists at the bigger level, at ESPN, at Fox, at wherever. They see, like you said, they can see all the numbers. They know if they do a story all about, Jake LaRavia or something like that, LeBron can tweet, went to lunch today with Bronny, and that's going to do better talking about that than Dorian Finney-Smith with the Nets or something. Even the Nets are a bigger market, but still, like, you get the point. Mm-hmm. It's even at the big scale, it's the numbers. But then we get into the whole debate show thing. And here's what gets me, Donnie. Here's what frustrates me. And Brian didn't completely address this. I think there's a very real place for debate. I think there's something very valuable that can come from debate. There really is, because it can force you to explore the different sides of a topic rather than just being, and in today's social media world, we can be just so stuck in our own sort of tunnel, our own little world, right? Because you curate your own social media experience. Oh, this person said something I don't like, unfollow. This person says something I don't like, unfollow. And we see this, of course, this applies politically, right? Where I'm only going to hear content from this particular side because this is what I agree with. I'm not going to listen to opposing points of view. So I think debate offers a very real opportunity for opposing viewpoints to come in. Now, whether or not those viewpoints are genuine when we get into the sports world and just trying to create hot takes, that's where the value of debate goes away. But I'll tell you the problem that I see, Donnie, is that we see online, because debate has become such a central part of sports media, we're now seeing people are looking for that kind of stuff. People are looking for ammunition for either side, and they're being encouraged to follow suit, to parrot, to mimic what we're seeing at the national level in terms of that Skip, LeBron is awful, right? The basic central thesis is LeBron is terrible. Does he really believe that? Probably not. But that's kind of the basic central thesis, right? LeBron is awful. So then you're going to look and you're going to try to find anything. Oh, look, LeBron didn't get back on defense on this play. See, LeBron is up, right? And you're going to try to wave that around and hold that up to everybody. And we've also got people doing the opposite. LeBron's great. See, look at all these reasons why LeBron is great, but that doesn't give you a holistic look at anything. So I think we've taken the value of debate and the hot take culture that we've got, and we've created a system where in social media, we wind up, rather than focusing on what the big picture is, we focus on just what it is that supports the extreme view, one way or another, that we've been pushed into.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It almost can feel like, with the way that you can, like you said, curate your own social media, it almost feels like you can get stuck in a little bit of an echo chamber if you're just doing that and you're looking for validation for your own opinions from other people, and you're denying any other opinions. But I mean, who am I to tell people how they want to, engage in social media? But just in general, there's just a lot of variety for what you can look for in this space. And back to the debate show topic, I think the big thing with that is that I think there is merits to it. There's merits to it, but I think only if done in a reasonable way. I don't think, or in a truthful way. I don't think that there's too many merits to it if you're just going to sit up there and basically lie, because I think a lot of times, like you said, Skip or these people, they'll say things, I'm pretty sure they don't believe them, but they've got to take a hard line stance. You're going this way, I'm going that way, so we can argue about this, because even if we agree on this behind the scenes, we need to argue about it to create parity and just get the engagement that we're looking for. But I think that just with all these platforms, whatever it is online, TV shows, whatever it is, these networks, they all know what they're looking for, and they have specifically spent time looking for the reactions that they're trying to get that'll boost their numbers in a specific way. And so with this, ultimately, the reason why we're not getting coverage like Brian is looking for, like other people may be looking for, is because that's simply not the stuff that's selling right now. So maybe in the future we'll shift back to that. I just don't know if it will, because underlying all of this is, like I mentioned earlier, the attention span piece, where it's like people are only looking for 60-second clips, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes at the most, right? They're not looking for stuff that is very long form content anymore. So I just don't know. I think that the way of the future is for people to seek that type of like storytelling stuff out in like documentaries or just players specific podcasts, where you're going to buckle down. If you're going to go on a podcast, you're going to sit there for 30-40 minutes, because that is what it is. Like, that's what you're looking for. That's why you're watching a podcast. So I think that's where that's going to be relegated mostly to. I don't see ESPN or these other big networks or any of that stuff trying to shift back. And you have also seen it as well. We talked about our channel. I know earlier on you tried to do some chronicling stuff, and it didn't really do as great. I don't know if it would do great if we tried to do it now, because, and I know that you've also tried to do some of that stuff like with Kobe on the Lakers channel, and it just doesn't do great. It's just people aren't really looking for that type of stuff. So I don't really know.
Exactly. I've done stuff that have been more documentary style, and the people who watch it, the responses I got on it was phenomenal. Like, people were so appreciative that I did that, and the views were nowhere near, any of the other stuff that we do. And so that's again, that's a very small piece of the sports media world, but it's exactly what Brian is talking about. The last thing, just to bring things kind of full circle, as far as people looking for things to make fun of, one of the things that can get, where I see, like I said, there's real value in debate. Hot take shows, I think, can kind of push that away. You get rid of some of the value because you lose some of the genuine sentiments. But I think that what we're seeing, especially online, is we are now seeing more and more people who just want to point fingers. They don't want to put themselves out there. They just want to point fingers. And so we're now seeing a lot of people who, they go around, they try to find a clip, they try to find someone who said something that they disagree with, and what they'll do is they'll put that out and then just put, right, and you know exactly what I'm talking about, LMAO, and then like 50 O's after it, or just bruh, and then a bunch of laughing emojis. or something like that, because they want everybody to pile in and go, oh, I can't believe that person said that or did that. They're so stupid. And everybody kind of point and laugh and that type of thing. And you're sending the message that you're disagreeing with something. But as Brian was talking about, again, we're looking for things where we can laugh at the misfortune of someone else. Mm-hmm. And so my only encouragement to people would be, it's like, if you disagree with someone, that's great. That's fantastic. Great. Disagreements are wonderful because it forces people to explore different angles of things, different sides of things. But if someone comes out and says something you disagree with, rather than just doing the lazy LMAO a million times and then hoping other people will pile on and mock that person too, how about explain what you think? Instead of just, hey, I found this funny because I disagree. Why? What is it that you think? I think that's what's getting lost right now is people. And I think some of it is fear. People are afraid to put what they think out there. They'll find something they disagree with, but not actually put out what it is that they believe. Instead, offer a counterpoint. We're not seeing enough of that. And that's where I think the value of the debate culture, the hot take culture, gets lost when it devolves into just, let's find something we disagree with so that we can laugh at it, instead of let's find something that we disagree with so we can explain why we disagree. I think that's an important step that right now is being missed. And maybe just like Brian, maybe I sound like, old man yelling at clouds here, but that's something where it can be fun, but I think we lose some of the quality of what debate can actually bring.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I just don't think that's a sports thing, though. I think that's a widespread thing with the way that we handle just discussion today, where everything is like that, where it's like, okay, well, why do you disagree? Like, can you tell me why? Or am I just going to be called names? Like, you can let me know. I don't have to be a whatever, right? So I think that's just a general sentiment across the board, but nonetheless, it does affect NBA basketball related coverage, and unfortunate as it is.
Overall, to wrap all of this up, I think social media overall has been a not for everybody, but it's been a positive in terms of how quickly we get information. It's been a connective thing for us. But as Brian Windhorst said, that doesn't mean it's all positive. There have been some things that we've lost as well. So just something to consider. And I find it to be a very interesting conversation, especially because I am so deep into all of this stuff. I just find it very interesting, Brian's approach to things, how he sees the current landscape of sports media. Maybe some of this, does, as Donnie just said, apply to sort of media in general, social media in general. But it's an interesting landscape that is quickly evolving and something that we've never seen in all of human history, right? I mean, when I was born, we didn't have to deal with any of this. 15 years ago, things weren't the way that they are right now in terms of how sports media is consumed. So it's going to be interesting to see where all of this grows and develops to. But obviously, this video was very different than what we typically do on this channel in terms of breaking down news or providing analysis. But this is a bigger picture topic that I've had top of mind for a while now and really wanted to get into. So I'd appreciate it. Let us know in the comments if you guys enjoyed this conversation. And again, appreciate you all being here. And Donnie, once again, I truly appreciate your insight. And I'm really glad that you were here to have this conversation with.
Yeah, anytime. It was definitely different, like you said, than what we typically cover. So hopefully everyone watching this did enjoy it. And if you want to see more awesome content from us, we recently covered on the channel, make sure you click on the video right there.